We're good? Alrighty. Wi-Fi's back on. Everybody's good to go. Welcome, folks, to the regular meeting of council for October 26th. Call the meeting to order. There is one item that I would like to add to the agenda as a late add-in regards to the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit being held at the end this week, actually, isn't it? So if you would indulge me, please, 7.1.2.
Move approval as amended, Your Worship, of the agenda.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Public participation. It is an opportunity for the members of our public to come before council, and if they have anything that they need to share with us. So that is your time now.
Gail Johnston, 245 Shipsview Place. I come to you tonight not just as a taxpayer. I come before you tonight on behalf of the newly forming Colwood Community Association, which is a group of concerned residents who want to be more engaged with the development planning process at an earlier stage. I would like to express our thoughts on the public hearing from last Thursday night. It was evident that Colwood has an apathetic electorate when you have more developers and advisors at a hearing than members of the public. Thursday's hearing, unlike others we have attended, was for the most part non-confrontational, communicative, informative, and over relatively quickly. I was very pleasantly surprised that Randy Royer from Pacific Landing was able to personally answer the questions raised by our member Don Duncan, who had been unable to get answers from Colwood staff. We know Colwood is facing the stress of rapid development with a large number of development projects, many of which are very comprehensive and complex. Many of these require huge amounts of time, resources, and specialized expertise, which might not be readily available to staff and councillors. A lot of money is spent along the way as these proceed to the public hearing stage, when the residents are finally able to share their comments with this council. We think all Colwood residents understand that development is inevitable and sustainable growth is necessary to flourish. However, many residents end up being frustrated and confrontational with council, the planning department, and the developers as they try to make their concerns heard at this late stage before the project is ultimately given approval. These hearings are often unpleasant, unproductive, and time-consuming for all involved. The Colwood Community Association is open to all Colwood residents, and we are actively seeking to bring together a group of knowledgeable, experienced, and engaged citizens from all of the Colwood neighborhoods, from Royal Bay to Belmont Park. We would like to suggest a slight change with your current process. Our goal would be to get involved much earlier in the process. We could meet with staff, councillors, and developers, perhaps at the Planning and Land Use Committee, to provide neighborhood input in the early stages of a development, thereby saving time and money for all parties involved. Hopefully this would facilitate an easier transition for the project through the public hearing and a better acceptance in the community. As members of these neighborhoods, we can also more readily disseminate the accurate project information back to our neighbors. Hopefully this will answer their questions so they don't feel so left out of the process and quell the rumors. Although we are not yet ready to take on this task, we hope you will give us the opportunity in the new year. We want our contact with staff and council to be positive, non-confrontational, constructive, and respectful. We feel this could be a win-win opportunity for the city and its residents as we all work together to enhance the quality of life for all of us in this place we call home. We hope you will accept our invitation to celebrate your one-year anniversary by having an open house here at City Hall for all residents on or near November 18th. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? And last chance. Any members of the public? Then we shall move on. Thank you very much. Mayor's message, I have a couple of items before us. One here comes through Councillor Day and our HAT program. The Habitat Acquisition Trust is partnering with Friends of Havenwood Park for 2 upcoming restoration events in November. This has been marked to our website, so the information can be found there. But the first one is November the 6th, doing cleanup and site prep for the second event on November the 28th, where they will be planting some native species in the park. So for further information, you can get that on our website. Starting at 9:30 in the morning, coffee, snacks, and introductions will be available. Bring your tools and gloves and that sort of thing to the meeting at the Veteran Memorial Parkway, and there'll be a indication whether you're driving or walking to which section of the park. So there's that one on our books, and I think Sandra's already loaded it up. Thank you. The other one is in the spirit of the Victoria Foundation, who this year has come forward with a over all the city random acts of kindness program. So Friday, November the 6th, our community will be celebrating Random Act of Kindness Day. This day has been earmarked by the Victoria Foundation as a day to recognize kindness and humanity in the various communities. We have had many community partners step up and join us in establishing this as a proclamation, which we did at an earlier council meeting. So I do have these Random Act of Kindness cards that encourage the card holder to perform a simple act of kindness for someone, a neighbor, friend, coworker, or someone they may not even know. Hand the card over to that person, inspiring them to do the same. There are additional cards available at home hardware stores and Island Savings Credit Union branches. It reads on here from the Victoria Foundation, "You have been touched by a random act of kindness." And on the back side, please return the favor and perform a random act of kindness to a fellow citizen today. Pass the card on and pay it forward. So these are available for anybody that wants them, and council will be each getting one, and you'll be telling your stories later. And if anybody else from council with anything for this upcoming part? Nope, we're good. Adoption then of minutes, please. Item number 4 for the regular meeting of council October 13th.
Move adoption.
Second.
Councillor Nault?
Yes, one correction on item 6.2.3, hotel revitalization tax exemption agreement. That's on page 7 and 8. It should reflect that I voted opposed to that, and that is not in the minutes.
Pardon? Yep. So as amended then, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes to receive, please, for Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues for April 16th, Heritage Commission September 9th, and Protective Services September 16th.
Move receipt, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Presentations, we are pleased this evening to welcome the proponents for the ONNI group, Chris Evans and Dionne Delesalle, and I know there's another fellow hiding back there. They're here this evening to present to council for the first time the concept and plans before you of what the development site at that corner may look like in hopefully the very near future. So I'm going to turn it over to staff to do an intro and set the stage, and then we'll be having folks come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to be really brief and give some context as to where staff's at with the project. We're currently in discussions with ONNI to determine the next steps with regard to the applications that they need to make to bring the project back to life and move forward with construction. The site plan and architectural renderings presented tonight are very much conceptual in nature and have not yet been commented on by staff. The intent tonight is simply to provide an update on this very important site for Colwood. Once formal applications are made to the city, Staff will provide full reports to Council outlining background information, decision points, and staff recommendations where applicable. Thank you.
And with that, I'll welcome ONNI. Thanks, Chris.
Were you gonna? Do you want us to post these up on the screen, the site plan and the renderings? Probably the renderings. I think the pretty picture is better. Sure, that's great. Thank you very much. Hi, Your Worship, Council, staff. My name is Chris Evans. I'm the Executive Vice President of the ONNI Group. Dionne, Delesalle, and Chip Lyle, part of our development team and working diligently on this project. Our hope tonight is to give a brief introduction to our company, to City Council, as well as a brief introduction to sort of next stages in terms of our formal, I guess, development application coming back for what seems to be now being referred to as Colwood Corners. I think that we have not settled in on a marketing name. I think it certainly will not be the name of the historic past, but we will be back with a new marketing name as well. So a very quick brief about ONNI is it's a family-based business, second-generation Italians, based in Vancouver. We are a group with offices now in Vancouver, Toronto, Los Angeles, Chicago, Phoenix. We have built probably 7,000 homes in the last 10 years throughout North America. We own and operate 7 million square feet of industrial, office, and retail space, which we still own and maintain, which will have some context when we get into a bit of the discussions around the site plan and what we're working through. We're a group that is fully integrated. We run all of our construction in-house, interior design in-house, approvals in-house. So we're basically a one-stop shop from really an owner-operator. We do sell and build condominiums, but we have a very core business that is about operating assets, which we take and spend a lot of time making sure we're doing very well. In that, we take a lot of time and effort in the communities we work in. This is our first opportunity to work with Colwood. We're very excited about that. We are very sensitive and understanding to the history of the site. We have been involved with 2 sites that we've taken out of failed proposals in the past, and we know the sensitivities around it. I think the one thing that we stress and are here to do is to make progress and change, and we are going to do so. Our purchase basically closed, for a bit of brief, in the last year in early 2015. Like we said, it is a very complicated site. By nature of being partially constructed adds to the complexities of it in terms of what the best next steps are. Can we retain some of the structure, et cetera, et cetera. And so in basically from July until today, we've been working internally with our consultants and just our own people to try and assess what the best next steps are for the site. And then we've certainly obviously had lots of dialogue with staff in terms of trying to ascertain what those next steps are as well. We have, with our consultant group, come up with a scheme that we hope takes on a lot of the general concepts of the desired concepts of the previous plan. I think it potentially brings it down in scale. We're not looking at high-rise construction as much as we are in mixed use, for sure, but more with wood frame construction for the residential, just to try and keep within price points that we feel are going to be manageable for the market. The site is obviously very large and has multi-phases. This application, or I guess site plan as it's shown today, really only deals with what we're really calling phase 1. It deals with the existing mall and the partially parcel that's partially under construction. There's obviously many future phases to come. I never would say never, and high-rise construction certainly might be there. It's not in the plan for what we're considering as our general phase 1. I'm obviously here to answer any questions if I can provide more info, but some general thoughts. Can we look at the site plan? Please, thank you. Can you zoom in a little bit? So for us, we obviously have been working through existing tenancies with people that are still in business. Obviously, part of that key is London Drugs. They're just such a significant tenant to the mix, to the whole site. We've stressed that as it's such an important part of the project going forward. The second piece to that is focusing on a second anchor, which in this case is going to be a grocery store. That process is a big part of our application, because the grocery store dictates a lot around loading, access, parking. They're drivers of a lot to do with site plans. So in the last number of months, we've also been working through negotiations with a potential tenant, because we really see them as a partner. They have general, not approvals, but we work with them hand in hand to come up with a successful model for their grocery store. And that world has evolved, continually. Obviously, we've done some work with Thrifties, which everyone is familiar with, and we have a Thrifties that we still own and operate in Port Moody. It has a whole new world around it from a new ownership group. So there's lots of things changing. We're excited about the prospects of landing an anchor tenant, which will solidify the London Drugs piece, which is already there, and really solidifying the next piece from grocery, which is a big part of our internal process. Now, it's not as internal to the city. Our application will come forward regardless of the tenancy, but that's piece of the puzzle that we're still in midst of working through. And then what you'll see is that on the three buildings to, I'll call it the left, and the bottom are mixed use, 4 stories of wood frame above the ground floor retail, integrated then through to street front retail on Souk, and some surface parking into the existing piece in front of London Drugs. As I say, that's very high level. There's going to be lots of time in the future to have discussions. We're working through all of that with staff, and we hope to have our goal is to have a full application in before the end of the year. That's our plan. That's our goal. We like to at least have schedules to try and meet, and I think that we feel like we should be able to be successful with that one. So.
Great,
Thanks very much for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure, and that's what I was going to open up to council for any sort of top-of-mind questions that you might want to ask of the folks from ONNI. So, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. First question, you mentioned phases, and I'm just curious, how would we identify what phase is what with looking at the site plan?
Well, this does not show the entire parcel. So the whole project includes all the sites on the south of Jerome Road. And so this is really only looked at as, and I say phases, or parcels. We've looked at this as the tangible first steps for the project.
So this is phase 1?
This is phase 1.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it would all be built at the same time. The underground parking is basically under the large format retail on the top, and partially to the bottom. But this, as it relates to us, is really what we're considering phase 1.
Thank you. And if we were looking at, I know it's tough for you, you might not be able to see it, but you've identified the buildings. So when I was confused on where you were talking about the grocery tenant, which phase were you thinking, or which building?
It's itemized as building 1.
Building 1.
Building 1.
Thank you.
And the renderings will show a little bit more, but there's 4 stories of residential on top of the grocery store. If that makes any sense.
I'm good.
Councillor Nault?
One quick comment and then a question. My comment is on the multiple accesses to Souk Road from the site. It looks rather busy given the amount of traffic that comes through Goldstream and Souk. I'm sure staff will be helping you address that as the plan goes forward. The second thing I would like to comment on is I don't really see any public green space in this whole plan. There's a few trees in the parking lot. It would be nice to see like sidewalk cafes or some sort of public gathering place that would lend itself to more to being a city center than just a shopping center.
Thank you for the comment. We'll see if we can work through that with staff.
Councillor Day?
Thank you. Looking at your plans, and I appreciate it, it's early days. I have some similar concerns to Councillor Nault just about Souk Road because left turns have been very much problematic onto Souk Road. So from where your grocery store entrance is there, that used to be an entrance historically that had to be shut down so there was no left turns there. And then wanting to facilitate active transportation, cycling, pedestrians. And I'm concerned with Building 6. It looks like a drive-through restaurant, the way that it's configured with driveways and so forth on an area that has actually looked quite pleasant as it was the presentation building for the previous development. So I don't know if I'm reading that wrong or...
It's shown conceptually as a building that does have drive-thrus.
Any other comments? Yeah, sure.
Could you just, I know I'm not holding you to this at all. And I know that we're going to try and hopefully get a DP by the end of the year. What is your ideal window that you're thinking that people would move in or tenants would be actually moving into a building or any of these type? Like are you thinking 2017, 2018?
Okay, I think probably the easier one to talk through is once we start construction, I would say completion of the buildings would be 15 months. So the time that it takes to get to that is a little bit more challenging, but once construction starts, I feel that we within 15, 16 months would be really being able to see tenants moving in. You know, yeah, I mean, I think for sure. We have buildings under construction very similar to this in Vancouver, and I think within 15 months for what it is a tangible goal.
Excellent. Thank you.
And Chris, just to follow up, this afternoon we had an age-friendly workshop here for 3 hours, and what came out of that conversation with many of the stakeholders, and then community residents as well, is for our senior population, it's where it was focused, was the lack of those sort of green gathering kind of casual sit and enjoy company and whatever. So just to follow up on some of the previous comments. London Drugs, is it staying where it is, or is it also moving to Building 1?
I mean, I don't know.
You don't. It's
we very much see London Drugs a part of this site.
Mm-hmm.
Where and how they fit into it is still to be determined.
into negotiation. Yeah.
What I can say is that our anticipation is to retain the building and upgrade. That would be our plan. It aesthetically needs to match brand new.
Absolutely.
From our perspective. So that is part of what I would consider as general phase 1.
Great.
And I take your point, and both the point is the same, but I appreciate that. I think that we appreciate that this is, as they say, is early stages, but we value in these concepts the heart. I mean, we've described it in a project that we're working on in Port Coquitlam that has much the same sense of it, but we've identified what we could call the heart. It's where kids play in the fountain. It's where people sit. It's usually tied to restaurants. I mean, I appreciate the point, and I think that we'll do what we can to.
Well, I will let you know we have a cenotaph looking for a home. It's in the midst of a parking lot right now, kind of elevated on a traffic island, so it's a little out of place, but we would dearly love to find a more suitable and community location for it. Okay. Yep, Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments. First of all, welcome. We're absolutely thrilled to have you in the community, and we're glad you're here, and we're ecstatic that you purchased the site. And so this is a good step. So we're really happy with what we see. Just a couple of observations. The Souk Road frontage is really important to us, and it really makes our city center. And I would echo probably just the comment about the restaurant side, only because of the location and how whatever's there can be complemented by the new building that's right across the street.
Sure.
You know, so we really want to make sure that whatever's there draws on the positive from what will be Kitty Corner. And I think they could really complement and really draw people in to the project. So, but overall, you know, we're pretty excited that you're here. And I know it's hard to take me seriously with all my facial hair, but
Councilor Logan was the very first person we saw as we walked into City Hall today. So
nothing like first impressions.
Yeah.
Thank you,
thank
Chris.
you.
Any other comments from council? Chris, thank you very much for taking the time to come over and engage us at the very early stages here. As you heard from members of our public, it is important to our community in having that input. So you'll be seeing lots of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would even, I think from the first presentation of the evening, I mean, we take consultation and communication as maybe really the key factor of success and development. I think that from a council and staff point of view, as well as community point of view, I mean, we recognize change is not easy, and regardless of size and scale. So our approach is to communicate as much as possible, provide information as readily as available, and answer questions that we can at least try to answer. So we're always available if ever anyone has any questions or thoughts. So
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, correspondence requiring council direction. Item number 6.1. If it will load up on me, here we go. I'm going to take the lead on this one, folks. This is an email that we all received from Ms. Johnson, who was here to present earlier in the public participation sector. And I did respond to her via email to say that we did have something in the works, and I have been working with staff in regards to that. But unfortunately, the November 18th kind of time frame there, 3 of our council members are going to be away in the latter part of November into the early part of December. So what we're hoping for here and what the so-called plan is are usually the first meeting that we have in December is a fairly light agenda, and it's actually the sort of annual, mandate point. Yes, we may have been elected in November, but we don't get sworn into office until the beginning of December. So it has been our intention to take that opportunity perhaps to have a bit of a meet and greet and that sort of thing, which we'd like to turn, as an invite to you folks and others in the public to attend that brief meeting and be part of that. And then, of course, later that week, we follow up with our Christmas light up, which is always a great social, but that's a little bit more outdoor and family oriented. So we're going to be looking to, look for something along that line. The other thing that's been discussed is possibly in that first quarter of 2016 that we can have something there, maybe a town hall meeting, something along that line. We have budget. Council's going to be extremely busy in that time frame, but it's also an opportunity for you folks in the community whose dollars are being contributed to the decisions we make to have some input and be involved. So it might be another opportunity for that. So that's kind of where we're going with things at this time. So if that will suffice to you, we have your email contact information. And Judy Allen was in touch with me today. She was part of the aging community program that we did this afternoon. So I think we might be on to something here. Okay. So I guess motion to receive from council, and you've heard what's going on.
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. New business, economic development, item 7.1.1. I understand, Councillor Logan, you're going to be taking this one. Councillor Martin was not available for that meeting.
Thank you, Worship. If you can believe it, the city's received 55 applications for our posting that was up, and our CAO is looking for some direction by the committee on the Economic Development Officer position. Mr. Nason confirmed with the committee that the interview panel for the Economic Development Officer position consists of the Director of Planning, the Chief Administrative Officer, the Communications Manager, and the citizen representative from the Economic Development Committee. But Mr. Nason was also suggesting that perhaps the committee might think about adding the mayor to the panel as well. We were asked just to think about, not necessarily to give an answer to at the meeting, but think about what the city's highest priorities for this new position would be, what the appropriate degrees would be necessary, experience within an economic development position, anything in particular that we would like to see on the resume, as well as Gary asked that members go through the appendix supplied in the agenda package and give staff an idea of what projects they'd also like to see delivered in the first year of this position. It was recommended by committee, and I so move that Mayor Hamilton be added to the interview panel for the Economic Development Officer position.
Discussion, council? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. On that part on what we would like to see in that position, that's open to all members of council to put forward in there any ideas moving forward. So if you've got any thoughts on that, we'd like to hear from them. Item 7.1.2, that was the new item we added to the agenda. Councillor Day.
Thank you. This is a memorandum from our administrative assistant regarding the 2015 Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit. It's being held in Nanaimo on October 28th and 29th, the end of this week. And it's a venue and a forum for businesses and stakeholders on Vancouver Island to understand the state of the island economy. Youth, First Nations, political leaders, small business, and other Vancouver Island people participate in championing the actions that will position Vancouver Island in the global marketplace. And it's been suggested that Councillor Martin and our communications manager would possibly be able to attend the summit, as it would be beneficial for the city to gather ideas and create connections to assist with Colwood's economic development needs. The registration is $429 per person for the two-day event, and Councillor Martin and the communications officer would each be able to attend a day, requiring only one registration to be made. Accommodations would not be required, as the attendees would commute each day, as it's only in Nanaimo. And the options are that council could support and approve sending Councillor Martin or another delegate to attend the 2015 Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit, being held October 28th and 29th at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre in Nanaimo, or not support sending a member of council to attend. And the recommendation is that council support and authorize Councillor Martin to attend. And I would so move.
Second.
Discussion, council? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Always a kidder. Motion carried. Thank you, Councillor Day. Item 7.2.2, propose... Nope, pardon me. I'm jumping ahead of myself here.
2.1.
Yeah, Protective Services 7.2.1, Councillor Day.
Nope, sorry, just a minute. Getting my iPad to cooperate. There we are. At our Protective Services Committee this month, we had an overview of discussions and actions that have already been taken by Colwood Council when a decision by the province to close and relocate ambulance stations in the West Shore first emerged back in September of 2011. Letters were recently received, and they appear to be form letters as part of a writing campaign, as they were identical in nature with different names and addresses filled in, but a majority of the letters were from Colwood residents. Overall, our first responder program continues to work the way it was intended. When the fire department does arrive first on scene, the average wait time for an ambulance in Colwood has been 4 to 5 minutes, a statistic that has been consistent since 2013. And Colwood Council has been supportive of ambulance paramedics. And the chief also mentioned that operational changes made within the BC Ambulance Service have become more province-wide and affect some communities more than others. And Chief Smith remarked that while wait times in Colwood are short, some communities the wait times for an ambulance can be significantly higher. So it was recommended to Council, and I would so move, that Council continue to support the highest level of pre-hospital care for their citizens and visitors, and that future form letters of concern received from the public with regards to ambulance service in the City of Colwood will be received for information only and without acknowledgement. And just for your information, we received about 10 letters, and each of those letters were responded to either by myself or by the fire department, and we did advise them of the date and time of the committee meeting where we were discussing the item, and no members of the public who had written a letter were in attendance, and none informed me that they had wished to attend and could not.
Discussion, Council? And I'll say that the ones received by me said, simply that it would be upcoming forwarded to committee. So it was all the sequence. I heard nothing back from any of them either. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 7.2.2, proposed bylaw to regulate the emissions of dust and rock crushing. And just before you get started, I just want to point out to staff that, and I don't know with the rest of council, but both of those additional reports that are in those two segments come up with saying that they're missing attachments. So I'm just wondering if maybe we can get staff to link them back in properly because the hyperlink doesn't find them. Councillor Day.
Yeah, I had the same experience. So, regarding the proposed bylaw to regulate the emission of dust and rock crushing, our Chief Administrative Officer provided the committee with an overview of a report regarding the proposed bylaw and recommended that the draft bylaw be circulated to a sample of representatives from the local development community for comment and input prior to finalization, with any comments, suggestions, revisions, or feedback received through this consultation project brought back to committee for further consideration prior to confirming the provisions of the bylaw and submitting a final recommendation to council. And so you'll see that I'm going to amend the wording just slightly of the recommendation that was made to council, just because we had our committee hats on and we were recommending to committee instead of to council. So I would move that that council supports the drafting of a bylaw to regulate the emission of dust and rock crushing in principle, and requests that prior to referring the bylaw to council for finalization, that staff be directed to circulate the draft bylaw to a sample of representatives from the local development community for their comment and input, and that all feedback and suggested revisions received from the consultation process be brought back to the Protective Services Committee for further consideration prior to confirming the provisions of the bylaw and submitting a final recommendation to council.
Thanks, Councillor Day, for making the clarifications within that and making it more detailed. Conversation, discussion, folks? Councillor Martin?
Sir, through you to our staff, did we not have anything like this when it came to like the gravel pit? Like, I can't believe we had no rock crushing. We had a huge gravel pit there for 100 years.
Yep, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
The gravel pit was managed by the Ministry of Mines, and therefore we didn't have an... No.
Mm.
That was my only question.
Yeah. Anything else for anybody? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving forward, then we've into bylaws, number 8.1, bylaw number 1599, final reading for Colwood, Maine, sewer local area service bylaw establishment and loan authorization, number 598, 2001.
Move final.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1601, final reading, Colwood West Sewer Local Area Service Establishment and Loan Authorization, number 625, 2015.
Move final.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8.3, bylaw number 1602, final reading for exempt certain lands and improvements from taxation for a 10-year period beginning fiscal 2011, bylaw number 1359, 2010, amendment number 3, add 345 Well Road.
Prior to us, I realize we're at final reading, so there's no discussion once the motion is made, which is why I'm just asking for clarification. There was reportedly a different date in the local newspaper. I'm wondering if that's a problem for staff on this.
Sorry, I'm just seeking clarification on the different date, Councillor Day.
This is for the...
For the hotel.
No, this is not the
No.
hotel.
This is permissive tax.
Oh, sorry, I've got it wrong.
You're okay then for the clarification? Anyone?
Second.
All those in favor?
Understand?
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to move in camera.
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed?